Since 2009, Ashley has been a global leader at IBM. Most recently, Ashley has taken on the role of IBM's quality transformation leader with the mission of driving operational and cultural change across a workforce of 300,000 to transform the IBM client experience. She's a graduate of Southeast Missouri State, and of course, we are very proud of her as an alum of Southeast. She's an advocate for professional development, and that led her to launch her own business, The Comms Lady. So Ashley is no stranger to the ever-changing technology and how it impacts the world we live in. Obviously, this past year has shown us that technology is a critical part of our lives and can be used very effectively, particularly in formats like this. So I see lots of people out there waiting to see Ashley. So without further ado, allow me to introduce Ashley AuBuchon-Arcand. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much and welcome. I love seeing so many people out there excited to get our day started. I'm just so grateful to be here today. This is such a great event for CMO students, alumni, and supporters. And definitely, like Trudy said, it looks very different from previous years, but there's one thing that is obvious to me that remains the same, and that is really the unwavering dedication that just our Southeast community has in coming together when it matters most. So as we get our first ever Power of Women Digital Summit started, I would be remiss if I didn't say a personal thank you to the committee for having me here, and also especially to Amanda and Angie and Brad, who I know have been working tirelessly around the clock with their team to make this event a wonderful experience for everybody. So kudos to you guys, and thank you so much again. Okay, so a little bit about me. As Dr. Lee mentioned in my introduction, I have spent the past 12 years working with and building communities of innovators around the world at IBM, which is a $120 billion international technology company. Much of my focus has been around helping clients and organizations solve business and real world problems. And I'll give you a couple recent examples of that. You may have seen recently that New York is using a vaccination passport to help businesses be able to open sooner and in a safe manner. And that is actually being run on IBM blockchain technology. So that's really exciting partnership, as well as we are helping Moderna with their supply chain processes of distributing their vaccines around the world. So the world deals with the pandemic, technology has played such an important part in helping us get back to maybe our new normal. Some other things that we do, we have an annual call for code competition that addresses climate change and environmental issues, where teams come together to create solutions to those problems. And we also help major airline clients like Delta move their data centers to the cloud, which helps lower their greenhouse emissions and also transforms their client experience to make it more seamless, which I think we can all appreciate, hopefully even more once we are able to travel even more freely. But for me, what's been most rewarding with my time at IBM has been ensuring that IBMers around the world feel valued and they're really motivated to continue to grow as professionals. And I've been able to do this through different leadership roles with the company, mentorship relationships, and also through teaching business communications and leadership training. So I share this with you because usually when I teach a class or I publish an article, I really like numbered lists. So an example, I have an article that's top 5 steps to maximize your productivity. Or I have a class that is the 10 C's of communications. So I do this because having a numbered list, my audience can remember, okay, these are the key points that I want them to take away from our time together. So today, your lucky number is 3. Today, I'm going to give you 3 actions that I'd like you to take that will help you grow as a professional and a human being. All right, so let's get started. And feel free to put comments in the chat. Trudy's going to kind of moderate the chat. And as once I'm done kind of talking to you today, I'm happy to answer questions as well. So the first action that I am asking you to take, it's a critical one. It's no matter what phase of life you're in. You could be a student, you can be an early or seasoned professional, or you could even be retired, enjoying retirement like my mom, who's in the audience today as a retired teacher. So this is not only also a personal action, but it's one that every business and every industry must take to stay relevant and grow as well. So if you're a business owner, this is for you too. So action 1, you must adapt. And that might sound simple, but it's not always the easy thing to do. And I'm going to give you some reasons why adaptation and change is so important. So, of course, I'm going to start with technology. As you can imagine, IBM is 110 years old. So we have had to adapt time and time again. When IBM started, they were selling typewriters. And they went from selling typewriters to helping NASA put the first man on the moon. So yes, I'm super excited. Dr. Godwin later today will be talking to us about her time in space. So I'm going to definitely geek out during that session. But we went from working with NASA to then creating the world's first personal computer. But guess what? Today, we sell 0 computers. And that's because we've had to continue to adapt and change courses to make sure we stay relevant. So what do we do? About 10 years ago, IBM did something that had never been done before. And that was we had our supercomputer, Watson, play on the game show Jeopardy! Did anybody see that? You can put in the comments if you happen to watch that. It was back in 2011. And all right, awesome. I see people said, yes, you saw it. So why did we do this? We didn't do it to show that a computer could win a game show, but we picked Jeopardy! Specifically because it's not just question and answer, but it's puns and play on words. And it's really making calculated decisions and putting pieces of information together to come up with an answer. And we really wanted to show the world what was capable with artificial intelligence. Because here's a stat for you. A supercomputer like Watson can process the equivalent of 1 million books per second. That is just impossible for the human brain to hold that much information. But a supercomputer can process 1 million books per second and continuous, right? It's continuously learning and connecting data points to make a decision. So IBM went from typewriters to personal computers to artificial intelligence. And today, actually just recently, a few weeks ago, Gartner came out and announced that IBM is a leading AI company in the world. So that's great for business, right? Being able to adapt and change like that. But it's also really important for the world. And I'll share why. After Watson was on Jeopardy! The first thing we did was have the top 16 oncology doctors in the world teach Watson about rare cancer cases. And by using this supercomputer and AI and feeding it information about patient history, about new emerging studies that were being done, Watson was able to diagnose certain cancer cases up to 40% more accurately than doctors. And taking it a step further, was also then able to predict effective treatments for those rare cancer cases 30% more accurately. Now, that doesn't mean it's not the Terminator, it's not those crazy sci-fi movies that you see where AI is taking over our jobs or the need for doctors. what it really is it's helping them make better decisions when it comes to patients' health and treatment. So it's pretty amazing how far technology has come, and it's because companies like IBM and the people working for them are able to adapt. So if you think about it, if they were just threw in the towel, right, and they'd gone out of business after typewriters stopped selling, or if they had just focused on winning Jeopardy and helping airlines and not gone into healthcare, then we wouldn't have these cutting edge technologies like AI and quantum computing that are quite literally changing the world and saving lives today. So we can say, well, how is that reinvention possible? It's not the technology. The technology, yes, is changing, but we as humans are the ones who are in control and are driving those changes and the new technologies. We as humans are the ones who are adapting, and we pivot and we course correct so that we not just survive, but we really thrive in our new environment. So that is very much an industry example. But I would also like to share a personal example of adapting to new challenges. And that was about 7 or 8 years ago. I was teaching some soft skill classes, or I call them success or people skills, all around how you communicate and work with people. And I was teaching at a local community college in Dubuque, Iowa, when I worked for IBM there. And I realized that I was unable to understand my students when they were asking me questions. I would be presenting and I wouldn't hear that they had a question. And what you should know is I have a family history of hearing impairment, and I already had high suspicions that I myself had the same issues. So I realized it was finally time to take the leap and go to the doctor. Because my hearing loss was definitely prohibiting me from doing what I loved, which was effectively mentoring and teaching others. So after avoiding the audiologist for several years, I finally made my appointment, and it confirmed that I had profound hearing loss and would require hearing aids in both of my ears. So I realize now that could have really been a turning point in my life. I could have let my hearing impairment keep me from teaching, or even assume that it meant that I'd never become an executive or the leader that I desired to be. But that's not what happened. I got my hearing aids. It took me a while to accept and to wear them all the time, but I did. And I also did my research. I found different technologies like speakerphones and Bluetooth headsets, and even captioning on video calls if I need it, that really helped me. But not only did I find technology to assist me, I also got a little vulnerable by starting to let my colleagues and students know when we were working together about my impairment, so that sometimes maybe they needed to adjust their communication style. But it was amazing when I started providing that transparency. It allowed me to bring my true self to work every day. And it also allowed my colleagues to understand me on an entire new level. And it really made it formed a more human connection and more meaningful relationships. So, did I stop teaching because of my hearing impairment? No. I've actually gone on to help over 20,000 professionals and students grow communication and people skills over the past 7 years. I've also hosted live events being broadcast to 350,000 IBMers around the world. And I have had the honor of speaking at dozens of conferences just like this one. So I was so excited to be here today and to share this with you, because my hearing loss didn't define me or what my future could be. Really, if anything, it helped show me that's just one more thing that cannot stop me, from being the professional and daughter and wife and mother that that I am today. So the thing is, that's my story, right? But all of us, every one of you has a story like mine. Maybe not exactly like mine, right? But we've all faced an obstacle where maybe others would have let it just stop them in their tracks, right? But we kept marching forward. And that's true in our lives every day. We have to adapt. And one way we can all relate to this, right, is it's even more evident for all of us this past year with the pandemic. We experienced tremendous change to our daily lives. It became obvious, at least in our house, it did, that people handle change differently. But those who are able to navigate and even embrace change are really the ones who don't only survive when times get tough, but they have shined and they have led and they have inspired others and helped the others who maybe aren't adapting as well. So here we are, right? A year into this pandemic, once it all started, and every single one of us has had to adapt one way or another. We've all seen that big change is possible. Uncomfortable, yes, but absolutely possible. So I just want to encourage you with this first action that the next time your expectations are not met, or maybe you're faced with another challenge, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take a breath. I want you to look at what you're up against. And then I want you to decide, how are you going to respond? Are you just going to give up and say it's not worth the trouble? Or are you going to pivot and course correct so that you can get the outcome that you're looking for? Okay, adapt, right? That was number one. Let's move on to number two. Now that you've all committed to adapting when life throws you curveballs, the second action is you must innovate. So I already gave you examples of how IBM does this, right, for the past century. But innovation, everyone thinks is technology or a technical solution. But it's not just that. It is how we work together. And we saw this in the pandemic. We saw when restaurants, they innovated by adding drive-through windows to their buildings and delivery services so that they could remain open and they could continue to feed their communities. We saw innovation with how we celebrated birthdays, right? That we had drive-by parades and Zoom parties, and we had neighbors breaking out in song together from their balconies. That is innovation. We saw schools. Oh my goodness, the schools. I am so proud of our students and our teachers and our administration, how they embraced technology and new ways of working when they were forced into virtual and hybrid learning models. That took incredible adaptation and innovation. Every day this past year, we saw our communities innovating and how we work together and support one another through crisis. And I mean, even today, our first ever Power Women Digital Summit, this event had to be completely reimagined, and it was brought to life from a willingness to adapt and innovate from our Southeast staff. So, okay, I'm going to say this next part slowly. It's probably the most important thing out of this whole talk. Innovation is what happens when we stop saying, but we've always done it this way, and we start saying, how can we do it better, smarter, and faster? I'm going to say it again. I'm going to repeat myself. Innovation is what happens when we stop saying, but we've always done it this way, and we start saying, how can we do this better, smarter, faster? Okay, so with this action, I encourage all of you to start thinking about your life, about your relationships, about your work, and start asking, what is not working, or what is slowing me down, and how can we make it better than before? Those are the questions that are going to lead you to innovation, to growth, and to a brighter future. All right, guys, I'm getting there. I'm on the third action here. Number 3, you must connect. So while we all would like to think we can achieve every dream that we have our sights on by ourselves, the truth is we all need support. We need to receive it, and just as important, we need to give it. So I have had great success in my career at IBM. I work smart. I am the most prepared person in the room usually, and I truly listen to my colleagues and my clients to understand their perspective. But I would be lying if I said I got here all by myself. It started young with me. My dad pushing me to sprint hills to prepare for my upcoming sports seasons, and my mom reading to me and encouraging me to trust my crazy ideas, like moving across the country to start my career at IBM in San Francisco. But it also bled into my time at SEMO. My professors like Susan Gonders and Doug McDermott, they made learning fun, but they also created a sense of community within our public relations program where I felt seen and understood. So it was just natural for me then when I went to IBM to seek out that same connection, where my specialty is building communities of champions and innovators to move my programs and missions forward. And having a community of champions in your life can really open doors that you alone could not unlock. But just as we stand on the shoulders of those who came before us, we can be the one creating new opportunities for generations to come. And so these connections in my life, growing up in a small community, learning at SEMO, working at IBM, they've helped me become a better colleague and leader and just human being in general. But what's amazing is here we all are today, right? At the Power of Women Digital Summit. And I keep repeating that because I just think it's an amazing thing what this has become over the past 10 years. And it's because we all are searching for that same kind of connection, that same sense of community with people who have similar and very different experiences than our own. A community that we can learn from and bond with and bond together and grow with. So I want to take just a step back as I wrap up. Today, I've asked you to adapt and pivot down a new path when needed. I've asked you to innovate and imagine a better and smarter future. And now I ask each of you to connect, to find those who are looking for support, those who have expertise to share with you, those who could use a listening ear. I hope that all of you will truly realize the power of women today and continue to support future women just as we have been supported in our lives. All right, so 3 actions. 3 actions to grow as a professional and human. Adapt, innovate, and connect. Thank you, Trudy. Thank you, everybody. I look forward to connecting with all of you today during these amazing sessions that we have lined up. So, Trudy, take it away.
Well, Ashley, I can't imagine a more perfect way to start this day of transforming, empowering, and connecting our women. And as I put in the comments, because I got to remember, say them again. Say your 3 things again.
Adapt, innovate, connect.
Absolutely. Thank you. And the number of times we've had to adapt lately this year has taught us well, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
We can't thank you enough for what you would have said last year. I'm sure with your experiences over the last year, it's even become more of a powerful story.